Welcome to Doing the Work, a Naples Integrated Recovery podcast. My name is Brian, and this space is for anyone who's tired of surviving the same emotional and behavioral loops, whether that's anxiety, trauma, addiction, or problems in your relationships. Around here, we cut the surface level advice and sugarcoating, no platitudes or bumper sticker wisdom. We focus on clarity, responsibility, emotional discipline, and the courage to look at yourself honestly so that you can stop repeating old patterns and start living with intention instead of reaction. Let's get into it. There is a strange thing that happens in the human mind, a quiet background process that many people don't even notice. It's so constant and so woven into how we survive socially that it fades into the wallpaper of consciousness. And it is this: most people filter their entire existence through the question, what will they think of me? Like a shadow around every choice, how you speak, how you present yourself, how you hold your own opinions, how some of us shrink or inflate or mask. And the wild part is a lot of people think that they are living genuine and independent, but if they were to really slow down and watch their mind in real time, in conversation and in conflict, or in moments of uncertainty, they would catch that there is an internal edit button, a part that leaps up and tries to manage perception. We absorb this reflex early. A baby cries and someone comes in and nurtures. Approval equals safety. Attention equals survival. And as we grow, the mechanism becomes more sophisticated. We learn to perform a version of ourselves that keeps the environment predictable. We smile at the right moments, we soften parts of ourselves that might feel dangerous, and then we learn to hide raw pieces that were once met with shame, rejection, or punishment. Slowly, without noticing, we build what I'm going to call in this episode an approval prison. An entire internal structure built out of the parts that are terrified of losing connection with others. And in internal family systems language, this is a team of managers and firefighters who genuinely believe that their job is to keep you acceptable, to keep you small enough or pleasant enough, impressive enough, safe. And those parts aren't pathological, they're protective. They're trying to save your life with the tools that they had when you were small. But here is the tragedy, is that eventually you will mistake these parts for the whole of who you are. Some people forget that they're performing. They forget that there's a self underneath all of it, one that doesn't need to bend or hustle or scramble for a place in the room. So that's what today's episode is on. What happens when you stop? Not violently or rebelliously, maybe not in Mark Manson's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F, screw you, I'm done pretending kind of way, but a grounded way. The moment where you realize that a performance isn't required anymore. That doesn't have to be about a personality change, but just a shift in the center of gravity. And that's what happens when the guards of your approval prison finally can put down their clipboards and tasers and step back, and the actual you can walk into daylight. Let's talk about how this looks in real life. You're at a dinner party and someone asks you for your take on something juicy, religion, politics, some controversial topic. And before you speak, there's a flicker. A part of you runs a quick risk assessment of, ooh, what's a safe answer that I don't upset this person? Or what will sound smart but not real arrogant? Or what's going to keep the room comfortable? And notice you're not asking, what do I really truly believe? You're asking, which version of me should I be deploying right now? And that is an approval prison in action. A whole network of parts that think that their job is to shapeshift you into whatever earns belonging. And this dynamic isn't limited just to social conversations, it shows up in your career too. How many people climb ladders that they hate because some part of them, chasing a carrot, believes that approval is the ticket to safety? It shows up in relationships. How much connection is maintained through your own self-abandonment or fear of conflict or trying to earn love that you shouldn't have to audition for? It may show up in your identity. How many people live their entire lives based on values, roles, or personas that were handed to them and not chosen? All of that is approval prison. And many people never even notice the bars because they were installed so early that they just look like the architecture of reality. Something profound happens when you finally see the mechanism that's running under all of this. That moment is the first time what IFS calls the self poking through, a calm, grounded, witnessing part of you that's not hustling for safety. And in IFS, the self is the part of you that doesn't have to perform. It doesn't panic. It doesn't try to manage other people's impressions, and it doesn't need applause to know that it has worth. It just observes. It leads. When you see the approval prison from self, the whole structure can start to wobble. Not collapsing all at once. The protective parts still think that they're doing their job, but something shifts. You start to see the futility of constantly managing perception from other people. And then when you stop performing, even in small doses, the whole world rearranges around you. Once the approval machinery softens, something surprising can happen and you can meet you. Not a curated version, not the acceptable version, not the version that regurgitates all the same bumper sticker wisdom and slogans that you heard in a peer meeting, but you. And that self has preferences, it has desires, and it has opinions that aren't calibrated to somebody else's comfort. Now, some parts might panic and say, we can't show that, we can't say that. That person might leave. And if they do, that's okay. Those protectors have been working on overtime for a long time, and they are exhausted. So, when you listen past them, then you let yourself speak. You start asking questions like, what do I actually want? What do I actually enjoy? Or what do I believe? Without editing or accepting somebody else's view on reality. That's the jailbreak moment. The door is unlocked, the guards are confused, and you can walk out. A lot of people don't like to think about that when you stop performing, some relationships don't survive. I did a podcast a bit ago on like boss battles, and one for me was I noticed that I was looking for approval from a mentor once, and he didn't give it to me, and that like hurt me deeply. And at the same time, it was probably exactly what I needed in that moment. That people who were bonded with a false version of me that only continued their echo chamber, the version of them that kept them comfortable, they might feel that shift and say something like, "You've changed," or "You're selfish," or "You're not who you used to be." And probably what they really mean, or may not even be aware of, is you're not playing the role that my system understood or depended on. And that can feel like a betrayal to them, and it can feel destabilizing to you. But it's also honest. The approval-based relationships in your life will start to fall away, and then your authentic ones will start to deepen. Because here's the thing, self has a magnetic pull. When you speak and act from your real authentic self, you will draw in people who are done with surface level BS connection, and you will draw people who crave real depth, honesty, and presence. Those relationships feel totally different. I tell people that I am an introvert, and I think what I really mean by that is that I just can't stand fake connections with people. I don't want to perform. I don't want to have a rehearsed version of me that's going through in my head on the way to a family dinner which topics I'm going to talk about or what questions I'm going to ask that are going to be safe. I want interactions where I don't have to contort to somebody else to stay acceptable, right? Those are the ones that are a lot more real and mutual and nourishing. Approval is one of the oldest levers in social control. So we buy things so that people might look at us a certain way or agree with this or that so that we belong. Don't say this so that you don't get judged. Make sure that you fit in, otherwise you'll be alone. Marketing, politics, family systems, they all use approval and shame as currency. When you stop using approval as your compass, the whole system changes. You're not easily manipulated. The point isn't for you to become defiant, but instead grounded, so that you're not moving out of fear, and that you're not bending to keep peace, and that you're definitely not trading your authenticity for belonging that maybe you weren't even aligned with in the first place, because now you belong to yourself. Approval anxiety can feel like a life or death situation because at one point in our history it was. If you were cast out of the tribe, that meant being vulnerable, possibly starving, being subjected to predators, and your nervous system still carries that wiring. But a lot of the Stoics faced exile, and they ended up becoming people who had total self-mastery. When someone disapproves of you, your body reacts like you're about to be eaten by something, but in the real world, the worst case scenario is they don't like you. Good. Because even if you perform perfectly, someone still won't like you. So once you accept that, the fear loses its teeth. If you've lived inside this approval prison long enough, then you've probably become fluent in performance. You might not even know that you're doing it. You sound composed or wise, exactly how you're supposed to sound, but underneath it, internal tension, anticipation. And at some point, the structure cracks. Maybe in therapy, or heartache, or just through performative exhaustion. And then something shifts. Suddenly, the internal manager that was running the entire public identity steps back, and self has an opportunity to take the wheel. That shift is unforgettable. It feels like airflow when there wasn't any. This does not mean that those protective parts are going to just disappear, because they were built out of survival. But once you recognize them and see them, then they can lose their dominance. You'll probably still catch the flinch, Like, ooh, I was about to say something more palatable. Or, I noticed a part of me that wanted to look smart or impressive. Or, wow, that reaction actually wasn't mine. It was a protector trying to keep me safe. Each moment of awareness is a soft exhale, a loosening, a small jailbreak, and over time, the approval prison doesn't feel like home anymore. And yourself stops asking for permission to exist. What about social harmony? People often ask, so if I stop caring about approval, then won't I become disconnected or abrasive or selfish? I don't think so. Approval seeking is not about kindness, it's about image management. Self-led living is authentic, present, and grounded, and it's more compassionate because it comes from clarity instead of a false performance. People will feel and notice that difference. When you're acting from self, you're not manipulating the room or acting, you're not extracting validation from people that you don't even care about. You're not trying to control the emotional temperature through compliance. You're just being real. And being real is the foundation of actual connection. The day that you stop living through a lens of approval of others is the day that you meet the life that has been waiting underneath all of that performance. May not be a perfect life or an easy one, but an honest one. And here's the thing that nobody tells you. You're already enough. Not because you earned it or performed well or because people approve of it, but because your existence isn't contingent on applause from an audience. You don't need permission to be who you are. You don't need a panel of judges to validate your worth, and you don't need every part of you to disappear before self can lead. You just have to stop handing your autonomy to others. When you do that, the prison doors swing open, the guards sit down, you walk out, not into a new identity, but into the one that you were always meant to inhabit. And that is what true freedom feels like, when you can come home to yourself. Thanks for spending the time with me. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with somebody who may need to hear it. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others around you. Remember that we're all doing the best that we can with the tools that we currently have, and we are all capable of growing past them. If you'd like to reach out or connect, send me an email, brian@naplesintegratedrecovery.com. I hope to hear from you there. And in the meantime, thanks again for listening, and I'll see you on the next one.